Hey, I am Renesmee. Today I am reading What If Bella Tried to Stop the Wedding and Fell for the Wrong Cullen. Second part. Let me know which types of fiction you want next after this will end. Let's begin. The next few days were definitely part of the learning curve in whatever fucked up situation Jasper and I had gotten ourselves into. His sisters asked me at least 3 times a day if I'd heard from him or if we had plans or what I was going to do when he went out of town. I'm sure they were just trying to show me that they were completely accepting and approving of our relationship, but they really had no idea how much more complicated they were making things. Because of that, it had gotten to the point where I had to just suck it up and accept the fact that if I was going to pretend to be dating Jasper around our closest family and friends, I actually had to be dating Jasper, for all intents and purposes. We had to talk semi-regularly just to know what was going on with each other. We had to get familiar with each other's schedules. We had to actually go out like a couple. It was maddening and exciting and infuriating all at once. I had spent so long hiding from my feelings for him, and now I was going to have to spend as much time with him as any other normal couple would, forcing me to confront everything that I shoved down below the surface. I had brought upon myself, really. It's what I got for meddling. It was my karma for all too happily destroying my brother's relationship. However, I had to admit, if my punishment for ruining my brother's wedding was having to pretend to be dating his handsome best friend, I could learn to live with it. It could have been so much worse. When family night came around, I got home from work and hopped in the shower to freshen up. After I showered, I got dressed in black leggings and my favorite comfy top and a chunky cardigan. Rosalie and Tanya had already started on dinner when I got downstairs, and I started to tidy up the living room as they cooked. The kitchen wasn't nearly big enough for all 3 of us to be in there at once. Emmett and Edward were the first 2 people to arrive. They each came to give me a hug after greeting Rosalie and Tanya in the kitchen, and I followed them to sit at the island. "Baby Swan, are Garrett and Victoria coming?" Emmett asked me. "I haven't heard otherwise." "Why?" Emmett only shrugged, looking too nonchalant. I looked past him at Edward, who was Emmett's favorite gossip buddy and unfortunately for Emmett, far too honest of a guy to lie. "What's he talking about?" Edward looked over at Emmett, and from the corner of my eye, I saw Emmett shake his head. Tanya chimed in then. "Eddie?" she asked coldly. Edward cringed. "We saw Garrett at lunch earlier today. He trailed off, seeming to try and find the right word. He looked fucking miserable." Emmett finished for him. My heart dropped. "What, miserable how?" Rosalie asked. "Miserable enough to order 3 beers at 11 in the morning and tell us that his fiancée is, and I quote, a piece of fucking work," Emmett said. I shook my head and got up to go to the bar cart to make a drink. "Did he say what she did?" "Nope," Emmett replied. I pursed my lips and focused my attention on making my whiskey coke. I heard the door open while I was stirring my drink, and moments later, I felt an arm around my waist. I stiffened slightly and looked up at Jasper in surprise. He just smirked and winked before kissing my temple and leaving to go greet everyone else. I let out a breath and then took a gulp of my drink before topping it off again and walking back to the kitchen area. I took my seat again, and Jasper came to lean on the back of my bar stool after he finished his round of hellos. There wasn't much time for me to dwell on his closeness, though, because the door opened again, and Garrett and Victoria both walked in. My eyes immediately went to Garrett, but he looked completely fine, excited even. He met my eyes almost immediately and gave me a dimpled smile before walking over and greeting Jasper with a handshake and me with a hug. "Hey, sis. How was your week?" he asked. "It was good. What about yours?" Just dealing with some dumbasses at work. The usual." He chuckled. "Hey, did you hear from Mom what the plans were for Christmas this year?" "No, but I'm sure it's the usual. Undercooked mac and cheese, useless but well-meaning presents, and Mom getting tipsy on 2 glasses of wine." I laughed. "Y'all think it'll take a full 2 this year?" "I'm betting on 1 1/4, he said and looked at Jasper. "You'll probably be there this year. You want in on that?" "Loser buys drinks for the New Year's party," Jasper replied. "All right. I'll take that. You in, Bells?" I rolled my eyes and laughed. "I think I'm good." "Suit yourself," Garrett replied. Tanya announced that dinner was finished, and we all settled in for dinner. I sat next to Jasper on the sectional, and we fell into our normal small talk conversation as we ate. Victoria was unusually quiet, but other than that, I couldn't see any trace of the two of them being upset or as miserable as Emmett had described earlier. During dinner, Jasper's proximity and my overconsumption of alcohol kept me flushed and a little overheated, and I stepped out onto our patio after everyone finished eating, hoping to soak in a little bit of the fresh winter air for a few minutes while Rosalie and Tanya got dessert ready. I was leaning over the patio railing, staring at the grass and trying to clear my mind when the back door slid open and closed again. "You all right?" Jasper's voice was deep and soft. I turned to look at him. "Yeah. Just needed some air for a minute." He nodded and stayed silent for a moment. "So, I figured we should probably do something tomorrow or Saturday night. You know them," he said, motioning inside. I nodded. Yeah. We can do that." Jasper tilted his head ever so slightly at me, looking contemplative. "What? Nothing. Are we doing the holiday thing? I guess I should have asked before." I shrugged. "Our families would probably think something was off if we didn't," I said softly, looking down at my feet. "Right." I cleared my throat. "Well, we should probably get back inside." Jasper nodded and then opened the door to the house, stepping aside so that I could walk in front of him. Apparently, there had been some type of setback in the kitchen, so thankfully, when we made it back inside, Rosalie and Tanya were just now bringing the dessert out. I sat back down at my spot next to Jasper and quietly ate, feeling somewhat off and awkward. I just had a feeling in my gut that something wasn't right with the energy in the room. I looked around the room, and everyone seemed to be the same as when I went onto the patio except that Garrett's smile didn't quite reach his eyes as he spoke with Jasper. I looked next to him at Victoria and immediately made eye contact. I jumped a little in startlement but never broke her gaze. There was something different in her demeanor tonight, but I couldn't for the life of me tell whether it was good or bad. She smiled brightly suddenly. "Bella, I have an appointment to go look at dresses this weekend. Would you come?" she asked softly. My eyes widened. "Oh, sure, I'd love to. Do literally anything else. Acupuncture by a 3-year-old, listen to one of Jasper's American War History Channel lectures, a lobotomy." Her face got brighter. "Great, I'll send you all the details. It'll be us and our moms, so a fun girls' day." "Sounds great," I said through a fake smile. Within the next half hour, everyone had left, and since Tanya and Rosalie had cooked everything, I offered to clean, and Jasper stayed to help me. He dried the dishes after I washed them, and we worked in silence for a few minutes until I sighed. "Jas?" I asked softly. He's not happy, is he?" Jasper didn't say anything, so I looked over at him. He looked like he was trying to find the right thing to say. I think he thinks he is. "What happened today? Why were they fighting?" Victoria made a big deal about the new girl at Garrett's office. Apparently, they gave him some type of mentor role so that he could help her transition into the job better. The girl texted him about a work question, and then Victoria saw it and blew up. "Are you serious? She doesn't trust him?" Jasper made a face. "Yeah, I think old problems are starting to pop back up because of it. Ya know, like leaving him in the hospital when he was in a coma, cheating on him with his sister's boyfriend, a plethora of things I'm sure that we don't know about and he's just swept under the rug." I scoffed, and the knife I was washing slipped in my hands. I only felt a slight jab of pain in 2 of my fingers, but when I dropped the knife and looked down, I saw blood running down 2 of my fingers. It made a quick and not so clean slice, and I could already feel myself start to get light-headed from the sight of the cuts. "Son of a fucking bitch," I moaned. "Woman, you're a risk management disaster," Jasper chided playfully. "Jasper, shut up." I whined and quickly made my way up to my room to my bathroom. Jasper was on my heels the entire way. He looked over my shoulder as I let cool water run over the cuts in my bathroom sink, and then he started digging through the medicine cabinet. "How do you even manage to do that?" "I don't know." I mumbled pitifully and removed my hand from under the water. I quickly held a clean rag over my fingers to keep pressure on the cuts. I was still lightheaded, and I could feel my face getting warmer. "Let me see," he said gently and took my hand. He unwrapped the towel and looked at the cuts. "I don't think it went to the bone," I said weakly. Jasper shook his head. "Yeah, it should be fine," he said, going back to looking through the medicine cabinet. "Is there no rubbing alcohol in this house?" I shrugged. "I thought there was," I said and grasped the counter for support. My head felt like it was about to start spinning. "I think I need to sit down." I walked over to the bed and laid on it, still holding the towel tight around my fingers. A minute or so later, Jasper came out of the bathroom with an alcohol wipe he must have found hiding in the very back of the medicine cabinet, an ointment, and band-aids, and I sat up, wordlessly giving him my hand. I was ready for him to antagonize me more as he took care of my cuts, but he never did. I only watched in silence as he gently cleaned and bandaged my fingers. When he finished, I looked up at him standing in front of me and gave him a weak smile. "Better?" he asked, squatting down to get eye level with me. I nodded. "I still feel a little woozy. I may swoon." "You need to do something about those butterflies, babe. I'm gonna have to stop coming around here." I rolled my eyes, blushing. "Please, as if you'd be that easy to get rid of." He chuckled. "I'll finish cleaning up in the kitchen. You go to bed." "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Get some rest. I'll call you tomorrow to make plans for the weekend." "Okay. Night, Bella." His bluish eyes were peering into mine with an intensity that should have made me feel more uncomfortable than it did. Instead, I only felt calmness and peace. "Good night." Jasper gave me one last sweet smile, the dimple on his left cheek poking out just ever so slightly above the scruff on his face, before he stood up and left the room. I let myself fall back on my back in bed. "Oh, you are so motherfucking screwed, babe." "Sunshine, oh, you look so radiant." "My word. Bella, doesn't she look stunning?" my mother gushed as Victoria tried on her 13th wedding dress of the day. I was on complimentary champagne glass number 4 and quickly losing my ability to behave. "I'm stunned," I replied, fakely genuine with a bright smile. "See, your guests will just be stunned," my mother continued. "Oh, but Vicky, what about the one with the lace and cathedral train?" "Honey, you just have to try that one," Victoria's mother, Jane, interjected. "Bella, don't you think she should try that one on before we make a final decision? Wasn't it breathtaking on the mannequin?" I nearly flat-lined. "Spontaneous suffocation, I swear it," I said with the same faux enthusiasm as before. Victoria laughed. "Okay, fine. Last one and then we'll go back to the favorites." I fought the urge to groan as I leaned back against the back of the sofa. How long were these dress appointments? Surely, this poor salesgirl had more brides to attend to. Another half-hour later, and we left the store after ordering not one, but 2 wedding dresses. We piled into my mom's SUV, and Renee dropped Jane and Victoria off at Jane's house. As soon as she backed out of the driveway, Renee looked over at me with what I had come to know as her "I'm about to say something catty and gossip for the next 3 hours" face. I looked at her in anticipation. "I hate that little witch," Renee said, shaking her head. My jaw dropped. "What? Your brother's a dumbass. Bless his heart." I guffawed. "Where the hell have you been the past 3 years?" I asked. Renee made a face, deep in thought. "She had me fooled. I used to really like her. I never understood why you had a falling out with her." "But that Cheney girl is in my church group, ya know? Ben's older sister. Jessica." "Yes. Go on. She is just the sweetest little thing. Bless her." "Well, she told me just last weekend about what happened your 8th grade year, and honey, I am so sorry. I just had no idea. If I had known, I surely would have called his mama and let her know that her son was." I cut her off. "He's dead to me, Ma." Back to Victoria. Renee sighed. "Well, if she can do that as an 8th grader, what has she been up to lately?" So I did some digging. "Did you now?" I asked, fully intrigued. "I did," she said, matter-of-factly. Then her voice got lower. "And you know, that girl has volunteered to bring the corn casserole to the church picnic the last 3 years. And do you know what has not been served at the church picnic for the last 3 years?" "Oh, Renee." I groaned, throwing my head back against the headrest of my seat. "That's your dirt on this girl? That she blows off the church picnic? Well, if you can break a commitment to the Lord, surely you can break a commitment to your husband. You can't trust a girl like that any further than you can throw her, Isabella." I tried to hold in my laugh. "Mama," I started but shook my head. "I love you." She looked at me with an adoring smile. "Ah, my sugar bee. I love you, too," she replied and then crinkled her nose at me happily. "So, Jasper, huh?" "Ma." I groaned, blushing. "What, he's a very nice young man. Very hard-working and handsome." He's 6'3" with a thick back pocket. Just say what ya mean, mama. I laughed. Renee giggled. I taught you well. For your information, I did not purposely set out to be a gold digger. Oh, honey, of course not, she said, a hint of mockery in her tone. I rolled my eyes just as she pulled into the driveway of my townhouse.
Isabella Marie Swan, don't you roll your eyes at me, young lady. Renee snapped.
I gave her a sickly sweet smile. Yes, ma'am. I'll see you at Christmas. She nodded. Will your beau be joining us? Yes, ma'am.
She smiled brightly. Good. 10 a.m. Don't be late. Will do, I said before hopping out of the car and making my way to the house. I looked down at my phone for the time, sighing a little when I saw that I only had about 20 minutes to freshen up for my date with Jasper. Dress shopping took far longer than I had anticipated.
Jasper and I had made our plans yesterday, and the plan was to keep our date as casual as possible. I'd help him get some Christmas shopping done, we'd get food, and then I'd come back home. When I got inside, I went up to my room and changed into some cozier layers, leggings, a knit tunic sweater, and my favorite print jacket. After I finished dressing, I headed downstairs to get my shoes from the entryway and put them on the living room. I had just sat down on the sofa to put them on when the front door opened. How many times do I have to tell y'all to keep that damn door locked? Jasper chided as he walked into the house. The only person who barges in unannounced is you, I retorted, still looking down and focusing on tying my bootlaces. I'm making a point. You're being a smartass, I replied, making my last knot and looking over at Jasper for the first time. He was leaning on his elbow against the kitchen counter, gazing off at nothing as he waited for me, wearing his typical boots, jeans, and baseball hat with a gray quarter-zip pullover and a fleece-lined jacket. How does he even look good in corduroy? What the hell? I shook my head to clear it and stood up. Ready? I asked. He nodded and then smirked at me. How was dress shopping? I snorted as I went towards the front door and got my purse from the entryway hook. You're not gonna believe this shit. I giggled to myself a little. What? I looked up at him, grinning. Renee hates Victoria, I said simply and opened the door, leaving Jasper standing stunned behind me in the entryway. Eventually, he caught up to me. Wait, Mother Renee? She hates someone? She called her a little witch, Jasper. I laughed. Jasper opened the passenger side door of his truck to let me in, and his eyes got impossibly wider. You're kidding.
And you wanna know why? I asked, climbing up in his truck. He leaned against the open door. Why? Victoria has promised for the past 3 years to make a dish for the church picnic and has not shown up and followed through even once. And my mother said that if Victoria can break her commitment with the Lord, then it was completely possible for her to break her commitment with Garrett. She doesn't trust her.
Jasper guffawed, doubling over. When he got his composure, he stood back up, wiping his eyes. Fuck. Are you serious?
I can't make that shit up, Jas. He chuckled again. Son of a bitch, he mused, shaking his head before backing away and gently shutting the passenger door. When he got around to the driver's side, he started the truck and pulled out of the driveway.
So, how many gifts do you still need to get? All of them, he answered simply.
Come again, all of them. It is a week before Christmas, Jasper Whitlock. What do you expect to find? He shrugged. What I need, hopefully. You give me anxiety daily, cowboy, I said, shaking my head and looking out of the passenger side window. I could hear the smirk in his voice when he answered. And there's those damn butterflies again, Bella Swan. You sure know how to boost a man's ego. I rolled my eyes and looked over at him, only to meet his eyes for a short moment before he looked back at the road, still grinning cockily. As if you need your ego boosted. Your poor horse. You must really push her to the limit with all that extra weight in your head that you're carrying around, huh? He opened his mouth to say something, but chuckled to himself before shutting his mouth again and shaking his head. I narrowed my eyes at him. What? I snapped. Nothing, babe. I was merely about to make a suggestion, but I thought it might be in my best interest to keep my mouth shut for once. HMPH. I turned away from him, letting his statement run through my mind a minute. After a minute or so, I gasped when the realization hit. I could practically hear his smug drawl in my head. You're probably right, but if you feel that bad about it, you could always help me give her a break. You're a real jackass sometimes, you know that.
He shrugged, not arguing with me. By the way, in your dreams. Yeah, sure. The old girl could probably use a break, could be fun. I flipped him off and looked back out of the window, trying to hide the heat I could feel rising to my face.
I was quickly beginning to question if there was a worse karma than being stuck in a fake relationship with my brother's handsome best friend. This was hell. I was in hell, or at the very least, the hotter side of purgatory. Renee would be so completely ashamed. I looked over at Jasper as he effortlessly backed into a parking space near the store we were going to, one hand on the steering wheel and the other on my headrest as he craned his head to see behind him, and for a moment, I could only think about crawling over the console and kissing him until I forgot my own name.
I bit my lip and immediately looked forward through the dashboard window. I could vividly see a picture of my mother watching me wide-eyed, clutching her pearls in my head, just absolutely ashamed. The store was extremely busy, which was really no surprise. At one point, I nearly got lost in a particularly crowded aisle, but Jasper took hold of my hand and continued to pull me behind him as we weaved through the people in the store. We had found something for his parents, and he had already planned on giving my brother, Edward, and Emmett a bottle or two of top-shelf liquor, perks of the job, I guess. So the only people he had left to buy gifts for today were his sisters. "Can't I just get them gift cards?" he asked as he wandered aimlessly through another crowded aisle. "You can, but they're gonna be a little disappointed about it. They're more presents over cash kinda people," I warned him. He groaned. "What are they getting me? I'm not telling you that, it'll ruin the surprise." "Come on, Bella." "No," I insisted. "What are you getting them?" "I got Rosalie a jacket she's been wanting, Tanya some earrings, and both of them each got a monogrammed leather portfolio to use for work." "Damn, that's actually really good," he muttered. I smirked, shrugging smugly. "I know." "Bella, help. I'm bad at this," he complained as he leaned against a shelf, taking his baseball hat off to rub his forehead and then putting it back on. I laughed. "Yeah, you are." He groaned again. "What about a work bag? They both need one. They're still using their book bags from college." He pursed his lips. "Would you help me pick them out?" I smiled and rolled my eyes playfully. "Yes, honey. You're so helpless," I teased, tugging him towards the checkout counter so we could go to a different store to look for Tanya and Rosalie's presents. Jasper bought his parents gifts, and we made our way out of the store to go to the next one. The second store was just as crowded as the first, and when we walked in, I hooked a finger through one of the belt loops on his jeans as he led us to the right section. The pickings in the tote bags were slim, but we managed to find two that I thought Rosalie and Tanya would each like, and we quickly checked out and left to go back to his truck. "Any preference on where you want to eat?" he asked as we pulled out onto the highway. I brought my feet up to rest on his front dashboard. "Not really, you can pick." A phone call came through, showing on his dashboard screen and the caller ID showing my brother's name. Jasper answered it on his speaker. "Hey, man. What's up? You doing anything tonight? Vic's cooking and the game's coming on. Thought you and Bells might want to come over." I looked at Jasper in panic and shook my head, mouthing to him, "I spent all fucking day with her." He fought back a laugh. "Shit, we actually have dinner reservations tonight," he lied smoothly. "We'll catch y'all later, though." I let out a silent sigh of relief. "Yeah, just let me know," Garrett said, and after they said their goodbyes, Jasper ended the call. He shook his head at me. "Shameful, just shameful, Bella." "Oh, you know you didn't want to go either," I argued. Jasper chuckled but remained quiet otherwise before turning into the parking lot of a popular seafood restaurant. By the time we'd gotten our table and after we'd ordered, I was starting to feel like this really was a date. A heavy silence fell over us as we sat at that tiny table in the corner of the restaurant. It was tucked away in the room with the most intimate lighting and the most privacy, and nothing about the ambiance was making me convince myself that this truly was just a casual meal between sort of friends. Thankfully, Jasper broke the silence so that I didn't have to. "It's just me, babe," he said with a soft, crooked smile. I tilted my head at him. "Do you call everybody that? Or just me?" "Just you." "Why? Why do you think?" he asked. "Honestly, I don't know, because at this point, you've been calling me that for years now." His smile grew a little more cocky, and his hazel eyes became playful. "And that doesn't tell you something?" I studied him for a moment. It's just a little hard for me to believe that someone with such a dangerous level of confidence would wait so long to say how he really feels. I've been telling you how I feel for years, Bella. I rolled my eyes. You told me dumb pick-up lines, Jas.
Rest assured, baby doll, dumb pick-up lines or not, I never say anything I don't mean, and I don't make any promises that I can't keep. How many times have I told you that I wasn't going anywhere? And that night at the bar, did I not explicitly say that I want more with you?
I sighed and looked down at the table. We were drunk. I had just broken up with Tyler. It just didn't feel real. What about now? I looked up, and his face had lost all its humor. I don't know, I admitted.
Jasper sighed. I shouldn't have ever let you act like that night at the hospital never happened. He said softly, his voice tired.
That's the problem, Jas. I can't act like it never happened. Every time I'm with you, it's all I can think about, I whispered. Then why keep pushing me away? I leaned back in my spot, wrapping my arms around myself, and shrugging. I just don't want to fuck everything up, I guess. I liked how things were before. We can't go back to before. I know. Our conversation got cut short by our food arriving at the table. The rest of the meal was quiet and even more uncomfortable than before. Jasper paid after shooting me a look when I tried to pull out my wallet, and then we went back to his truck so that he could take me home. Edward and Tanya were pulling up at the same time as us when we got there, and before I knew it, Jasper and I got roped into watching what was left of the football game on television and drinking whatever alcoholic concoction Tanya had made. I'm not sure what was in it, but it went down far too smoothly, and I wasn't the only one feeling them. Tanya rested her head on my shoulder. Bella, drunk Tanya was a completely different person than sober Tanya. She was giggly and cuddly and extremely emotional, and I truly enjoyed when she made her appearances. I think we should sabotage your brother's wedding. She was also incredibly vindictive, but the same was also true about sober Tanya. I laughed. Yeah, I think we should. Do you know what your bridesmaid dress looks like yet? No, and I'm not looking forward to figuring it out either. I'm sure it'll be tacky as hell. Tanya gasped. Good God, Bella, what if she tries to put you in taffeta? I'll fucking riot. I said honestly. She giggled. Is her dress ugly? Please tell me her dress is ugly. Which one? I deadpanned and finished off my drink. Tanya's jaw dropped. Which one? She got more than one. She has two. I need another drink, she said, clambering up to her feet. You want another one? She asked me. No, I'm good. I'm getting you another one. She waved me off. You too. Come on. There's still like a half-gallon of this stuff left, she told the guys. Tanya, I'm already gonna have to spend the night on the couch. Just let me wake up in the morning with some of my dignity still intact, Jasper argued. Tanya stopped in her tracks and narrowed her eyes at her brother. The couch? Is she making you sleep on the couch? What the fuck did you do? She rambled quickly and then looked at me. What did he do? Was he being mean? I'll beat his ass. Jasper looked over at me anxiously, realizing his slip-up. I was too drunk to think clearly, but I racked my mind, trying to think of an excuse. Thankfully, Edward came to our rescue. Baby, they're fucked up, and so are you. He laughed. He's saying he won't be able to get up the stairs at this point. Tanya turned back to Jasper, still not trusting that answer. Is that really what you meant? Jasper nodded. Yep. He downed the rest of what was in his cup. Tanya huffed and left to go to the bathroom before she got her next drink. Okay. Y'all too. What the fuck gives? You're obviously lying about dating, and don't tell me I'm wrong because I'm not fucking wrong. Edward accused lowly. My jaw dropped. Son of a fucking whore. What are you talking about? Jasper asked. Edward raised his eyebrows. You look like 7th graders at your first school dance. There's like a foot between you over there. I've seen the both of you in relationships before. That's not normal. Jasper tried to pull me closer, but I shoved him on instinct.
Ha, Edward pointed. Come on, Bella. Jasper groaned, rubbing his forehead with his hand. Oops, I giggled nervously. What's happening here? Edward pressed. I heard Tanya's bathroom door shut, and I made a motion for Edward to shut up before she came back into the living room. He pursed his lips and looked back at the television. When Tanya came back into the room,
She got everyone another drink and then sat next to Edward on the couch, curling into his side. I let out an inward groan, realizing that Edward was right, and leaned slightly against Jasper's arm before bringing my feet up on the sofa. He adjusted to drape his arm over my shoulders, and only minutes after getting more comfortable in his embrace, I felt my eyes getting heavy. I didn't even bother trying to fight my sleep, but I drifted in and out of consciousness the rest of the night.
At one point, I saw Tanya get up and go to bed before falling asleep again. When I woke up again, my eyes never opened, but I could hear Edward and Jasper talking. I'm not sure this isn't gonna be a complete shitshow, but I'm not gonna be the one to give y'all up. Edward sighed lowly. At least it's for a good cause.
It's not gonna be a shitshow. You were the only person who was even a little bit suspicious, Jasper replied. For now, but the two of you are gonna need to take some acting lessons if you plan on keeping this up for as long as you are. I'm also not sure that you've thought about the repercussions after all of this is over. I felt Jasper sigh just as I drifted back off to sleep. When I woke up again, I was being lifted off the sofa and felt myself being carried up the stairs. I leaned into whoever was holding me, immediately recognizing the cologne as Jasper's. I opened my eyes just as he opened the door to my bedroom. He laid me down on the bed, and when he tried to step away from me, I held tight to his pullover. You can't sleep on the sofa, I mumbled. He chuckled. I know, babe. The floor up here is fine, he said, loosening my grip on his shirt. Don't sleep on the floor. I'll share. I scooted to one side of the bed and got under the covers. It's fine, Bella. No, come here, I argued sleepily. I heard him mutter something under his breath, and a few moments later, he was beneath the covers with me. I didn't hesitate to grab his hand and snuggle into his side. He wasn't wearing his shirt, but I could feel the rough denim of his jeans through my leggings.
You're sleeping in jeans, I giggled. Well, I didn't exactly pack an overnight bag, so I don't have much of another option.
Oh. I laid awake next to him for a few minutes, but my day clothes were quickly becoming too heavy on my body. I clumsily climbed over Jasper to get to my closet.
Where are you going? I'm not comfy, I complained, fumbling around until I found the light switch in my closet. I squeaked at the brightness when I flipped on the switch, changed into my typical sleep shorts and cami, and then turned the light back off and blindly found my way back to the bed. When I tried to climb over Jasper again, I lost my balance, falling on top of him. What are ya doin', woman? He grunted. I giggled and crawled off of him, returning to my spot against his side and resting my chin on his shoulder. Comfy? He asked. Quite, glad to hear it, Jasper? I sat up on my elbow and looked down at his face. My eyes had adjusted to the darkness just enough to make out the features on his face. When I brought my hand to rest on his scruffy cheek, his eyes opened. Go to sleep, Bella, he said softly. I'm not tired, I lied. Jasper removed my hand from his cheek and quickly rolled on his side, wrapping his arms around me and keeping me pinned to the bed. Sleep. I sighed dramatically. You don't even know what I was gonna say. You weren't gonna say anything. What are you talking about? I asked. I know that look, and quite frankly, I'm a little offended that the only times you try to kiss me is when you're drunk and or crying. I was not going to kiss you. I was definitely considering it, though. Go to sleep, babe. He repeated through a chuckle. You go to sleep, cowboy, I snapped. His lips were near my ear as he moved his head to get more comfortable. Well, I would if you'd hush. I huffed but remained silent for a while, letting his response simmer in my head for a moment. So you don't want me to kiss you then? Oh, you are saying a lot of things right now, Isabella. What the hell was in those drinks? I want you to be half coherent so we can have an adult conversation and not act exclusively on impulse for once. I muttered. What is it with you and talking about feelings today? Why do you think anything is gonna change between us if we don't talk about them? He retorted. I didn't want anything to change. I told you that at dinner. But you kissed me, so they did. And we've never talked about it. And look at where we are now. Drunk and cozy in bed at 10 p.m. on Saturday. That's the dream, Jasper. I don't know why you're being difficult. Would you shut the fuck up? Oh my God, Isabella. Because when you wake up, you're not gonna remember any of this, and then you're gonna act like you hate me again. He explained. I turned my head to face him,
and he was so close that our noses were nearly touching when I did. I don't hate you. You just, intimina intimat imnidad. My brows furrowed as I thought about the word I was trying to say.
Intimidate, he smirked. Yeah, that word, that's you, I said, reaching up and touching the tip of his nose with my finger.
You've known me for over 14 years, Bella, he replied softly. Jasper, you're like, really cool. That's all right. Don't listen to me. Just keep digging yourself into a deeper grave. He chuckled lowly. Despite my bitchy inner monologue, I continued my drunken ramble, and I'm a home EC teacher with too many houseplants and way too much of the leisure in Patagonia for someone who fucking hates 90% of outdoor activities. I'm also a goody two-shoes, and I got a lot of ear piercings and a nose ring to make me look edgy, but I just look like a poser trying to fit in at a Green Day concert. I mean, I think I know like 2 of their songs maybe. I'm not saying I'm not poser, but I don't want to look like one. But you run a distillery and rodeo all over the country and have this gorgeous ranch house that you don't even live in because you travel like 25 weeks out of the year. You wear corduroy jackets unironically and somehow pull them off like Jasper. He met my eyes, holding in a laugh. What? You're the guy they make Hallmark movies about. You're over 6 feet tall with pretty eyes. I mean, come on. I can't believe there aren't producers knocking down your front door right now. He smiled a full, amused grin. You need to go to sleep, baby doll.
I glared at him in shock. I pour out my soul to you and you tell me to go to sleep. What the fuck? See, this is why I don't talk about my feelings. You're dismissing me, Jasper. You're being dismissive, I ranted. He couldn't contain his laugh anymore, and when he spoke again, I could still hear the humor in his voice. I'm not being dismissive, babe. I just think you're saying a lot of things that you'll wish you hadn't said in the morning. Not that I don't thoroughly enjoy hearing how utterly infatuated you are with me. He teased.
I am not infatuated with you. Please, I said, getting comfortable in bed and in his arms to go to sleep. It was quiet for a few moments until Jasper's deep drawl broke through the darkness. Ya forgot the part where I played lead guitar in a band in college, he gloated. Motherfucker. Oh my God. I groaned, pushing myself out of his embrace and climbing over him.
Where are you going? He laughed. I'm sleeping on the floor. You're pissing me off.
Why? You know why. Fucking show off. I put my hands on my hips when I got to my feet beside the bed. You just think you're Hank fucking Jr., don't you? More of a haggard guy, he replied offhandedly. Give me a break. I muttered and yanked the comforter off of him before curling up on the floor. Are you really sleeping on the floor? He asked in disbelief. Yes. I thought we could both fit on a queen-sized bed, but I forgot to factor in the room needed for your goddamn ego. Suit yourself. He said. I sat up, mouth agape. What, you're really gonna let me sleep on the floor? Jasper Hale Whitlock, you can't let a lady sleep on the floor. Isabella, get in the bed and hush up, darlin'. Please, he begged through an exhausted chuckle. I huffed and got back up to get back in the bed. A couple minutes later, we were settled back into the same position as before, and I felt my eyes start to get heavy again. Night, honey, I whispered. Jasper's lips brushed against my temple, and I felt his lips curl up into a half-smile against my skin. Night, babe. Jasper had already been gone when I woke up on Sunday morning, and there was a glass of water and painkillers waiting for me on my nightstand along with a note saying he had to leave to check animals. Head throbbing, I sat up and carefully picked up the water and medicine, trying to think of the last thing I could remember from the night before, which was overhearing the conversation between Edward and Jasper when I was in between consciousness and then him bringing me to bed. I spent the day in my apartment trying to recover from the worst hangover I could ever remember having, and I didn't feel completely back to normal until Tuesday. Thankfully, the week at work was slow, and we got out on Thursday for Christmas break. I spent the next 2 days until Christmas Eve wrapping presents and baking cookies to bring to my parents' house for Christmas Day. Christmas Eve was usually pretty lonely for me the past few years. My family didn't have any get-togethers, and Rosalie and Tanya were usually with their significant others' respective families. It left me at the house by myself, drinking spiked coffee and watching cheesy holiday rom-coms all day. However, that wasn't acceptable this year, and when I even mentioned it being the usual on my end this year for Christmas Eve, Rosalie and Tanya had looked at me like I had grown a third head. They didn't say anything to me about it, But the next day, Jasper called me and told me his sisters had chewed him out for nearly 2 hours for not having any plans with me for Christmas Eve. And so the Hurricanes had decided for us. Jasper and I would be waiting for Santa together on Christmas Eve.
I pulled up to Jasper's house in the early afternoon on Christmas Eve, feeling a little nervous. I still had no idea what happened that night at my house when he stayed there, but he had been extra smug lately. That worried me immensely.
When I got there, I decided to give him a taste of his own medicine and walked in unannounced, trying to be as quiet as possible. I quietly slipped in through the front door, set the dish of cookies I'd made on the entryway table, and tiptoed down the hallway into the large, open living area. Jasper was sitting on the couch reading when I saw him. The fireplace was on, and even though he hadn't decorated for the holidays aside from a singular stocking hanging from the mantel, I couldn't help but admit that this was the type of house that felt extra cozy on the holidays. I almost felt bad for ruining his peace and quiet time. Almost. Carefully, I walked up behind him and quickly wrapped my arms around his neck. "You really shouldn't leave your door unlocked," I said in his ear. "Son of a..." Jasper lurched forward and then turned his body around to face me. I giggled. "Merry Christmas." He clutched his chest, still breathing heavily. "You better sleep with an eye open tonight, woman. Fucking hell." I smiled sweetly and hopped over the back of the sofa to sit next to him. "What you reading?" Jasper sighed and got comfortable in his spot again. "It's about World War II. "Oh, Papa," I teased, laughing, as I pulled out my crochet needle and yarn from my bag. "You're one to talk," he said, eyeing the needle in my hand. I rolled my eyes and GT to work on the row of stitches I had been working on. "Crocheting is cool again. Ask all the hipsters."
"If the hipsters are doing it, it's not cool, darlin'." He chuckled, looking back down at his book.
I giggled and looked over at him. "Ya know, cowboys and the whole Western thing is really in right now, too." "Yeah, don't fucking remind me," he grumbled. "If I see one more frat boy in a fucking Prius get out of his car in a pair of boots and brand new Wranglers, I'm gonna run my truck off a cliff." I laughed. So judgmental. Dally jumped up onto the sofa just then and hopped up to lay on the backrest behind me, resting her snout near my shoulder as I worked. "Does she always do that?" I asked. Jasper looked over at the dog and then back down to his book, nodding. "Yep." I turned and kissed the side of her head before looking back down at what I was doing. "Freakin' adorable." Jasper laughed softly but kept reading. And that's how we stayed for the next 2 hours until my fingers started to get stiff from the stitches I was making. When I put my needle and yarn back in my bag, I turned to Jasper, watching him expectantly. He raised his gaze up to me, never fully lifting his head, and smirked before looking back down at the page he was on. "Are you bored?" "Yes. Give me a second." "Okay," I replied. He finished the page he was on, marked his place, and then shut the book. He put the book on the side table next to the sofa. "What would make you not bored?" I shrugged. He grinned and got up to his feet. "Come on." He held out his hand to me, and I took it gingerly, wondering what his plan was. He led me outside to his truck and then opened the passenger door for me. "Where are we going?" I asked. He shrugged. "We'll figure it out when we want to stop." I looked at him, confused, as he shut the door and then walked around to the driver's side. "So you're just gonna drive to nowhere?" I asked once he was inside and had started the truck. "Yeah, why not?" My brows furrowed. "It's Christmas Eve. What do you expect to find that we can do?" "I don't know. We'll go look at Christmas lights in the rich neighborhoods or something. We'll figure it out," he said as he pulled out of his driveway and onto the main road. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. How often do you go on trips and not know exactly where you're gonna end up?" "'Bout a quarter of the time, probably. But what if there's no hotels when you want to stop? What if you run out of gas?" "Jasper, what do you mean? You really just get in the truck and drive?" He looked over at me, smirking. "Spontaneity isn't much your thing, is it?" "No, not really. Be honest. How many calendars do you have?" I blushed, avoiding his eyes. "I don't know. A normal amount. Why do you ask?" I mumbled. He chuckled. "I have one. On my phone, and something tells me that you have about 12. "No, I only have 4. "You have 4 calendars? Bella, that's obsessive." "It is not. I need to stay organized. One planner is just for my school stuff. One planner is for personal and professional. Then, I have a big calendar on my desk that I jot down my little notes and reminders on. And then I have a weekly one with my to-do list for each day. Jasper looked over at me, wide-eyed. You're doing too much, babe. What if I forget something, though? I need to be thorough. He took his phone from his pocket and tossed it in my lap. You can be thorough and not have to take 3 hours of your day just to write down one event. I narrowed my eyes at him and then opened the calendar on his phone. It was extremely thorough and detailed. There's no color coordination or cute motivational little stickers reminding me that it's okay that life sucks because I'm still gonna get my shit done. I criticized. He smirked. If you need motivational stickers to get you through the day, you don't need another calendar. You need a different day job. Well, not all of us inherited a 5th-generation family business, Jas. I laughed. What do you expect me to do? I don't see myself doing anything else, I admitted. There's nothing else you'd think you'd be happier doing? I turned my body to face him, leaning against the backrest. Well, yeah, but it's not work.
Well, what is it? I don't know. Just anything I wanted, I guess. Pick up a bunch of hobbies I've always wanted to try. Get a dog, travel, have a cute little house to decorate and redecorate over and over again. Just really random stuff. It doesn't seem like much, but life moves so fast sometimes that even the little stuff ends up being a luxury, you know. I explained, meeting Jasper's stormy eyes for a moment before he stared back at the road. He seemed to be deep in thought as he considered what I said. I think you take life a little too seriously, babe. We only get one, cowboy. It's kinda hard not to. Exactly. You only get one. I'm not saying you should just up and quit your job. Just don't waste the quality time you get with yourself. I tilted my head at him, thinking about what he said. Have you always been this insightful? He shrugged. I guess, but the philosophy degree definitely helped. Your degree is in philosophy. He nodded. Well, I double majored in philosophy and agronomy in undergrad. And I have a master's in folklore. You're fucking with me, I accused. I promise you, I'm not. How did I not know this? I asked. I don't know. You were probably too busy organizing your calendars to come to my graduations, he said, grinning crookedly. I hit his bicep. You wanna go, Whitlock? I'll beat your ass. Let's go, baby doll. I'll pull over right now, he challenged. I giggled. Nah. I don't want to leave Dally fatherless. He smirked. Oh, okay. Jasper? Thank you. I didn't really know what I was thanking him for exactly, if it was for the advice he just gave me or keeping me entertained today or helping me with trying to destroy my brother's engagement. I just felt like I needed to tell him, and I felt like there was a whole lot more that I needed to say other than just thank you. But it worked for now. His voice was soft and low. You're welcome, darlin'. We ended up riding around for the next 2 hours and looking at Christmas lights until we got hungry. When we got back to Jasper's house, he made dinner, and we sat in the living room to eat while we watched a movie. After I finished eating, I settled in to get more comfortable on the sofa. I hardly paid attention to what was playing on the television. Instead, I watched the flames in the fireplace and thought about how Christmas Day would go tomorrow. We'd go to my parents' house through the early afternoon and then to Jasper's parents'. We'd spend the entire holiday lying, and for some reason or another, it seemed to be weighing extra heavily on my chest tonight. I felt awful. Not to mention that the only reason we had gotten into this mess was because I was shoving my nose into something it didn't really belong in. And yet again, I questioned whether or not we really should have been doing this. Was getting Garrett to break up Victoria really the best answer in this situation? Maybe she had changed. Maybe that's why they finally set a date. Maybe she finally woke up and realized that she was being crazy and had a really good man in front of her to settle down with. But maybe she hadn't changed at all. But what was her endgame here? Why bring Garrett down with her in whatever messed up scheme she was concocting and weaving? I was so lost in my thoughts that I hadn't even noticed when Jasper had gotten up and was trying to get my attention until I felt his hand on my shoulder. I jumped in start element and looked over my shoulder at him. What? I asked. Do you want anything to drink? He asked, laughing a little. Oh, coffee? I asked. He nodded and went into the kitchen. A few minutes later, I heard the coffee start to drip in the pot, and Jasper came back to lean on his elbows on the back of the sofa. You're unusually quiet tonight, he commented. I sighed. What's wrong?
We're going to hell, aren't we? I asked. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that we're trying to break up a relationship and lying to everyone we know in the process, I said. Well, do you want a clean conscience or do you want Victoria gone for good? I want both. I whined. He chuckled. I'm not sure both are possible right now, Bella. I pursed my lips. Maybe they are. How? Okay, just hear me out, I stated. I don't like how you said that, he replied warily. Just listen. What if we can end this all tomorrow? All you have to do is try to seduce Victoria. He stood up straight. Absolutely not. I sat up and turned my body toward him. You don't have to actually sleep with her, Jasper. But she obviously has low enough morals to sleep with someone else's boyfriend. Just flirt with her a little. See if she reciprocates. Isabella, my sweet ray of fucking sunshine, you're not thinking clearly. Now, I see that crazy look in your eye, but just hold on a minute and listen to me, aight?
He said, his hazel eyes trying to meet mine. I narrowed mine and met his gaze begrudgingly. Satisfied that I was listening, he continued, first of all, Victoria knows that I'm the one that outed her to your brother when she cheated with Tyler. She'll see right through the act. Second of all, I don't think your brother is going to take me flirting with his fiancée very well, regardless of the motive. Third of all, it's Christmas. There will be no sabotage on Christmas.
I groaned. Please, Jas. Sometimes you just gotta take one for the team, ya know? For the greater good. He shook his head and went into the kitchen, and I stood up and followed him. He poured a mug of coffee and handed it to me. Now, woman, you drink your coffee and forget you ever had this plan. I sighed. Fine, I said and went to get the milk from the fridge. He let out a breath and poured himself a cup of coffee. I made my coffee and then jumped up to sit on the counter. Ya sure? He shot me a look. No, ma'am. So no sabotage on Christmas? I asked. Like not even a little bit? I can't even trip her on the way to the bathroom or anything? Bella, it's Christmas. He said it as if it were obvious, his eyes nearly pleading for me to drop it. I smiled a little. You really like the holidays, huh? What's not to like? He asked. I shrugged, laughing. Why didn't you decorate more? I don't know. Just didn't feel like I needed to. You needed to. Did I now? I nodded. It's not Christmas without a tree. Where's Santa going to put our presents tonight? I guess you'll just have to find out in the morning, won't you? What? I laughed. He smirked and leaned over to kiss my cheek. Guest room beds turn down whenever y'all get tired. I'm headed to bed. He picked his mug up off the counter and then walked down the hall to his room. Dally hopped down from the sofa and trotted off after him. I watched him walk away, wondering what he had up his sleeve before shaking my head and getting down from the counter. I guess I'll find out in the morning, sunshine. It was raining when I woke up the next morning. It wasn't the nice, fluffy white snow I had dreamed about, but in South Louisiana, that hadn't been likely to happen anyway. I checked the time on my phone, and it was only 6:30. Still, I felt well rested enough and got out of bed. I hadn't forgotten what Jasper said last night, and my curiosity was still piqued. Nothing looked different when I walked out of the guest room and made my way towards the main living area. There was already coffee on in the kitchen, and I poured myself a cup before going into the living room and curling up on the big armchair by the fireplace. It wasn't lit, but still, in the dim, early morning light, there was something so comfortable about the moment. And for a while, I could see myself doing this every Saturday morning. I'd want to cozy up the space just a little bit more with some plants and extra throw pillows and blankets, but there was real potential here. I had just finished redesigning the entire living room in my head when I realized what I was doing, and I immediately sat up straighter, trying to get less comfortable. Dally had been sitting at the top of my chair, and my abrupt movement caused her to hop down and stretch while she looked at me with an expression that almost seemed annoyed. Don't look at me like that. I huffed quietly. More time passed, and at about 8, the back door in the kitchen opened, and I turned to see Jasper walking in, bundled up in a hoodie and thick flannel jacket. He took his hat and jacket off and hung them up on the rack, kicked his boots off, and then walked into the kitchen. He wordlessly put his thermos in the sink and then made a fresh mug of coffee before turning towards the living room. He jumped a little when he saw me. Fuck, I kinda forgot you were here, he admitted. The nerve. I snapped playfully. He took a sip of his coffee and walked into the living room. Maybe forget is the wrong word. Just didn't expect you to be up yet. He sat on the arm of the sofa closest to me. How's the weather? I asked, taking in his damp hair and the raindrops on his hoodie. Shitty. He replied and then smirked at me mischievously, his eyes gleaming. Could really go for some sunshine, ya know. He winked. I blushed, slightly speechless, and quickly took a sip of my coffee before I found my words and could say anything that would get me in trouble. You're awful, I muttered, still hiding behind my coffee cup. His smirk never wavered. I guess that's why you got a present last night, and I didn't, huh? I eyed him suspiciously. What are you talking about, Whitlock? He didn't say anything. His eyes only moved to the mantel of the fireplace and then back at me. What? He looked pointedly at the fireplace again. I looked at him questioningly for a moment longer before turning to look at the mantel. Nothing looked different or out of place since I had come yesterday. What are you looking at? Jesus Christ. He muttered through a chuckle. If there's no tree, where else would there be a present, Bella? I perked up. Is there something in the stocking? I think I've given you enough hints at this point. I pursed my lips to the side, trying to keep my giddy smile at bay. I didn't get you anything, though. It's fine, Bella, Jasper assured me, but I feel bad. If you don't go open it in the next 8 seconds, I'm giving it to Dally, he threatened. So it's something a dog could use? I questioned, Isabella. I hopped up out of the chair and put my mug down on the coffee table. Okay, I said and walked over to the stocking on the mantel. I got up on my tiptoes and reached in to grab whatever was inside. I pulled out a small wrapped box. It was shaped like something familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it reminded me of. I walked over to the sofa and sat down on the cushion next to where Jasper was perched on the arm before apprehensively unwrapping the gift. When I unwrapped the box, I realized what it was and looked up at Jasper. Is this what I think it is? I asked nervously. He laughed. Do you honestly think I'd give you a belt buckle? It's the only box I had on hand, he explained. I let out a sigh of relief and took the lid off of the box. Inside was a sheer organza bag that held a ring with a chunky, pear-shaped blue turquoise stone. I turned to Jasper in surprise, and he smirked. Don't look at me like that. You wear at least 6 rings a day anyway, and it's not even solid gold. I just saw it and thought of you. I bit my lip, somewhat sheepish, and took the ring out of the bag. I slipped it on my right hand pointer finger, where it fit perfectly. When do you get it? I asked softly, keeping my eyes focused on the ring. His voice was surprised. Oh, I don't remember exactly. October, maybe? I was in Fort Worth. Something about his answer made my throat tight. He went to Fort Worth even before we decided to get into this plan, much less pretending to be a couple. He shopped for everyone else a week before Christmas, but he saw something for me in October? Oh, I've been being a real bitch to him, haven't I? I bit my lip, feeling the guilt wash over me. After all this man had done for me through the years, I was here purposely hurting him because I was afraid. I didn't even know what I was afraid of anymore. I just knew that I had wasted too much time keeping him at arm's length. You like it? He asked softly, breaking me from my thoughts. I nodded, still not looking up at him. After a few moments, I looked back over at him, and he was watching me with pensive eyes. My next movements were slow enough to feel like they took years but still quick enough to happen before I lost my nerve. I gently tossed the empty box on the coffee table and then stood up in front of Jasper. His stormy eyes were still watching my every move. My hands went up to either side of his face, resting against his scruffy jaw. I think now's the time for that conversation, cowboy, I whispered. His eyes widened only slightly before his free arm snaked around my waist and his lips crashed against mine. It had been 2 years since I'd actually, truly kissed Jasper, and while I remembered it fondly, I didn't at all remember it being this good. My hands moved from his jaw to his hair as the kiss deepened, and he pulled me even closer to his body so that I was standing between his legs. His tongue slipped into my mouth, and I fought a wanton moan and leaned even more against him. After some minutes had passed, he pulled away. I'm sorry, this isn't talking, he said apologetically. It's okay. We'll get to that, I replied and kissed him again. He responded eagerly, but he pulled away again after a few minutes. Are you sure? We can slow down if. No, come here, I said and tried to pull him in to kiss me again. I don't want you to think that this is all I'm after. I do want more with you, Bella. I believe you, and we can have more. Later. I giggled and kissed him. You sure? He murmured against my lips. I nodded and started to kiss him again. I just want the record to show that I tried being a gentleman, all right? I leaned back from him and rolled my eyes. You've spent nearly the entire past 2 years trying to seduce me, and suddenly you have your code of ethics. What the hell, man? Just kiss me. He smirked, leaned down, and put his forgotten coffee on the floor. After he sat back up, he gently pushed me away so that he could stand up. Before I could ask where he was going, he had picked me up and playfully and gently tossed me down on the sofa. I let out a giggle as he climbed over me and started to leave kisses trailing down my jaw and neck.
And then my phone started blaring with an alarm. I whined, knowing that it was the alarm I had set for when I needed to start getting ready to go to my parents.
What is that? Jasper asked. My phone. It's still on the chair. He stood up and quickly got the phone, turned off the alarm, and returned to his spot on top of me. Jas, it's Christmas. We have to leave in like half an hour, I said as he tried to kiss me. We can be a couple minutes late, he replied just before his lips met mine. He pulled away. Maybe an hour. He lightly nipped at my neck. Fuck. Jasper, it's my mother, she's gonna know. Renee can't know I'm a heathen. He chuckled against me, his breath hot against my skin. She's not gonna know, and there's no way she can prove it. She'll be clutching her pearls and saying Hail Marys when we get there, I said pitifully. He sat up on his elbow, looking down at me with bright eyes. Fucking let her. I'm her sweet baby angel, Jasper. And since she figured out that my brother sold his soul to the demon spawn, I'm the only hope she has left in this world, and I will not be the one to crush her spirit, I said, sliding out from beneath him. Now get up. We can't be late, I demanded. Yes, ma'am. Sunshine, you're late, Isabella. I glared at Jasper as I got scolded by my mother barely seconds after walking into the kitchen. We were 15 minutes late because someone had decided to try and start his shenanigans despite our already very tight schedule. He only smirked before looking over at my dad and shaking his hand in greeting. Garrett came up to my side and threw a heavy arm around my shoulder. You're gonna lose favorite status if you keep it up, Bells. I rolled my eyes and laughed. Please, I became the eternal favorite after Daddy had to get you and Jasper out of jail 4 years ago. Charlie scoffed. She's not wrong. I smiled sweetly up at Garrett, who narrowed his eyes at me. We don't speak of that incident, Isabella, he stated. Right. I mean, I think it's only fair if you bring up our past transgressions, we should be able to bring up yours. Jasper taunted playfully. Now, I don't want to hear that. My Bells is a good girl. Charlie insisted. You two should have taken a few lessons from her.
I turned my smile to Jasper, batting my eyelashes for good measure. In Charlie's eyes, I truly could do no wrong.
Jasper raised an eyebrow at me. There will be no discussion about who has or hasn't spent the night in jail on Christmas. My mother said forcefully, holding her pearls in one hand as she stirred the pot on the stove with the other. I looked over at Garrett and he met my eyes, trying to fight off a laugh. Oh, Bella, I have something for you in Garrett's car. Do you want to come out with me and get it? Victoria asked. I faked a smile. Sure. Jasper shot me a look as I walked past him to follow Victoria outside, and I only gave him an innocent smile in response. I wasn't sure why he was so positive I couldn't be on my best behavior around her. I have some fabric swatches and patterns for bridesmaids' dresses. I was hoping we could look through them today a little bit, she said as she unlocked the door to Garrett's Camaro. Oh, yeah, definitely, I replied cheerily before her statement truly registered in my head. Wait, did you say patterns?
Yes, my aunt is being so sweet in making all of the bridesmaid dresses. Oh no, that meant Victoria and complete and total reign on how hideous she could make these things. I couldn't dwell on that too long, though. Victoria dug in the backseat of the car and pulled out a big plastic bin of fabrics and patterns. Ready? She asked excitedly.
As I'll ever be. I'll never be. She smiled brightly, and we made our way back into the house. When we got inside, she immediately set the bin on the floor in the living room and sat down next to it before patting a spot on the floor next to her. The guys were sitting in there, watching a game on television, and Jasper's lips twitched into a smirk for a fraction of a second when Victoria opened the bin and he saw what was inside. Victoria started to animatedly tell me what her ideas were for the color scheme and showed me a few pictures on her phone of what the flowers would look like before sifting through the bin to find her favorites. She pulled out some patterns first. The patterns honestly weren't so bad. The one she said was her favorite was a simple and fitted short dress, and I had nearly breathed a sigh of relief until I heard her utter the words, "I feel like I'd want to add sew sleeves, but I'm just not sure how'd that look in taffeta, ya know."
My head snapped in her direction. Taffeta, she nodded excitedly and started to pull out fabric swatches.
The swatches were the most obnoxious and shiny shades of that freaky chameleon-like fabric that I had ever seen. She pulled out an olive-toned cut of fabric, not olive, actually. But it was the closest shade of green I could compare it to that allowed me to convince myself that it wasn't that bad. "I like this for you," she said matter-of-factly and then pulled out a flat black swatch. Black for the rest of the girls. "Oh," I squeaked out. "The maid of honor has to stand out." "Right," I said unconvincingly before looking up pleadingly, hoping to meet Jasper's eyes. I did, and he quickly got up from his spot on the sofa. "Why don't we go get the presents from the truck, babe? So we can open them as soon as we finish lunch," he said, holding his hand out to help me up. "MMHMM," I replied, taking his hand and standing up to my feet. Jasper led me outside to the truck. He opened the back door, but he didn't move to get the presents. He just looked at me, waiting for my rant to start. I looked at his eyes for a moment before shaking my head silently, trying to gather my words and thoughts. As if taffeta in and of itself isn't bad enough, this bitch is trying to stick me in a slutty Cinderella stepsister dress in the most god-awful shade of fucking green I have ever seen. Did you see that swatch? Tell me you saw it. Jasper, I'm not wearing that. I cannot wear that. I saw it. I don't think it was that bad. You'll pull it off fine. You look beautiful in anything, babe. I eyed him incredulously and then shook my head, shoving his compliment to the back of my mind for the time being and making a mental note to scream like a fangirl about it later. "Yeah, well, you also wear floral pearl snaps. Your opinions can't count in this." "Hey," he objected, offended. I sighed. "You're right. That was a low blow. I'm sorry, Rhinestone." He narrowed his eyes at me. "Woman, you are treading on a real thin line right now, let me tell ya." I giggled. He rolled his eyes. "Do you feel better now that you've thoroughly insulted me?" "Little bit, yeah," I admitted. He sighed heavily. "Fine. One more. Get it all out of your system. We still have another 3 hours of this," he said, nodding towards inside. I pouted at the reminder and then pursed my lips, trying to think of another good roast. I tilted my head at him and patted the frame of his truck. "I know you have to haul trailers and shit, but is this much truck really necessary? Or are you compensating for something?" He smirked. "Baby doll, wouldn't you like to know?" he teased and turned to get the presents from the backseat. "Well, yeah, that's why I'm asking," I replied sassily. He turned back to me and handed me 2 gift bags as he leaned in close to me. "If you stop being a brat, maybe I'll let you figure it out for yourself," he said suggestively. My eyes widened, and I smiled a surprised, closed-mouth smile as the blush formed on my face. "I should bring these inside," I announced after a few seconds of stunned silence. "MMHMM." He hummed and turned back to the backseat to grab the rest of the presents. When I went back inside, Victoria's bin of torture was closed and pushed into the corner of the living room. I put the gift bags under the tree and then went into the kitchen to see if my mom needed help with anything and to get a drink. "Are you all right? You look flushed, honey," Renee remarked, pressing the back of her hand to my forehead. "Yeah, Ma, I'm fine. I just need some water," I said and walked to the cupboard to get a glass. "Do you need any help with anything?" "Oh, no, everything is just simmering," she answered. "It'll be ready in about 10 minutes. "Why are you just hanging out alone in here then?" I laughed and got some water from the dispenser on the fridge. Renee sighed from behind me. "I just can't look at her, Bella." "Look at who?" I asked, turning around to face my mom again. She put her hands on her hips and gave me a look, and I immediately realized who she was talking about. I furrowed my brows. "No, ma'am. If I have to play nice, so do you." She sighed. "Staying in here is me playing nice." "Well, honestly, Ma, hideous maid of honor dress aside, she's actually being very pleasant today." "Hideous dress? She's putting you in an ugly dress?" Was there ever any doubt that she wouldn't? I asked. Renee glared in the direction of the living room. I narrowed my eyes at her. Is this really just about my 8th grade homecoming and bad manners? I asked. There's just something that doesn't sit right with me. Renee admitted guiltily. I can't put my finger on it, and I have very little reason not to actually like her, but you don't trust her. I finished. She nodded and then eyed me curiously. You clearly know more than I do. Why don't you trust her? I laughed humorlessly. Believe me, Mama, it's better if you just didn't know. I don't like hearing that answer, Isabella, and I hate giving it.
Ooh, she growled, holding her hands in a choking position playfully. You're just like your father.
I smiled. It's why I'm your favorite. I gloated. She scrunched her nose and patted my cheek twice. The timer for lunch went off, and my mom sent me to get everyone and bring them to the dining room. Lunch and opening presents went by without incident. It was quite the usual. The mac and cheese had improved but was still a bit dry, and my mom got tipsy on 1.5 glasses of wine, meaning Garrett owed Jasper drinks at the New Year's party the Whitlocks had every year. The wedding got brought up a few times, but it wasn't the highlight of the conversation like it had been at Thanksgiving, which I could tell definitely annoyed Victoria a little bit. When it was time for Jasper and I to leave to go to his parents' house, Victoria gave me a hug and told me that she'd be planning a brunch for all of the bridesmaids to get together and to get to know each other better. I told her to let me know when and where and that I'd be there with bells on. I was going a bit overboard with my faux excitement, but my mom wasn't the only one that had let the wine get a little on top of her. When we were finally able to leave after what felt like 4 different rounds of goodbyes, Jasper and I got into his truck and left for his parents' place. It was less than a 20-minute ride there, and the drive went by quickly. Jasper pulled into the driveway behind Emmett's Jeep, and we headed inside for family Christmas number 2. As soon as we opened the front door, I could already hear laughter coming into the foyer from the living room. Merry Christmas. Charlotte greeted happily as Jasper and I entered the living room. She stood up from her spot on the arm of Peter's chair and came over to give us each a hug. Peter got up and followed suit. He gave Jasper a handshake and then greeted me with a one-armed hug. He kept his arm around my shoulder and looked down at me with a sly smile. His resemblance to Jasper in that moment was almost frightening. Did your father happen to give you a message for me? Yes, actually, I replied, my brows furrowing. E6? Peter cringed. I'll be right back, he said and quickly ducked out of the living towards the hallway. Charlotte shook her head and then pulled me and Jasper to sit on the sofa. And how was Martha May Horvier today, Bella? Rosalie asked. Emmett laughed. She's been waiting to say that all day now. Rosalie elbowed him in the stomach, still watching me expectantly. Rosalie, I really don't think that kind of talk is necessary any day, much less on a holiday, Charlotte said. Ma, that one literally only works on Christmas, Rosalie argued. Charlotte sighed disapprovingly but didn't say anything further. So, Rosalie pressed. Well, I helped her pick out bridesmaid dresses. Rosalie grimaced. And taffeta. Baby puke green taffeta. Rosalie's jaw dropped slightly, her face contorting in disgust. Babe, you didn't even tell her the best part, Jasper chuckled. I glared at him. What's the best part? Emmett asked, looking far too excited at my misery. The pattern isn't that bad. It's short and kinda fitted, but she wants to add sleeves. Don't tell me. Rosalie cut in. Not the puff sleeves. I only gave her a fake smile in response. It was Charlotte that responded that time. Oh, my girl, I am so sorry. I believe Bella's exact description after she heard the plans was, slutty Cinderella stepsister, Jasper said just a bit too gleefully for my liking. Emmett erupted into laughter. Oh shit, this wedding better be heavily photographed. I glared at him. Hey, don't gloat too much yet, groomsman. She and Garrett haven't come to a final decision on that, I warned. Emmett's face fell slightly. Jasper scoffed. Garrett wouldn't let her do anything even half as gaudy as what that monstrosity of a dress is gonna be. I turned to look at him with my best bitch face. I thought you said I'd look beautiful in anything. He smirked. Yes. You will look beautiful. The dress is still gonna be ugly as sin, though. I narrowed my eyes at him. You better shape up, cowboy, I threatened. He smirked at me just as Tanya and Edward walked into the house, and Charlotte greeted them with a hug before going to go get Peter from his office.
Shortly after, Peter and Charlotte came back into the living room, and presents immediately started getting passed around. It was a happy, chaotic kind of scene like from a Christmas movie with everyone laughing and talking and paper getting tossed everywhere as the presents were unwrapped. Once all the presents had been opened, we sat down for supper, and by about 8 o'clock, Jasper and I were back in his truck driving back to his house.
When we got there, I was a little at a loss of what to do. The original plan was to get in my car and go home, but after this morning, I wasn't sure if that was still what I wanted to do. Jasper brought it up before I could when he came around to my side of the truck to open my door. "Coffee or whiskey?" he asked, leaning against my door. I smiled a little. "Surprise me." He grinned and held out his hand to help me out of his truck. Dally greeted us as we walked through the front door, and when we got into the living room, Jasper opened the back door to let her run around in the backyard before walking over to the antique buffet table where he kept his liquor collection. He poured us each a glass of bourbon on ice before coming over and sitting down next to me on the sofa. I kicked my shoes off and brought my legs up under me as I turned to face him. His eyes met mine and then seemed to search my face for a few moments. "What changed?" he asked simply. I bit my lip and looked down the whiskey in my glass. "Perspective, I guess," I said softly, tracing the rim of the glass with my finger and staring at the ring he had given me as I did. Jasper's hand appeared on top of mine, halting my movement, and I looked up at him in surprise. "You're gonna drive me crazy with that," he said with a soft laugh. "Sorry," I apologized weakly. He tilted his head slightly. "What?" I asked. "Do I really intimidate you?" he asked. I immediately felt my face heat up and the blush spread on my cheeks. I tried to hide it by reaching up and fixing my glasses. What are you talking about?" He smirked a little. "You don't remember, do you?" "Remember what?" I asked, slightly panicking. "What you told me when I spent the night at your house." My eyes widened. "What did I tell you?" "Well, oh no," I groaned, resting my forehead in my hand. "You don't need to finish." "So you remember?" he asked. "No, but if that's how you're starting that statement, I know it can't be good." "It wasn't bad," he assured me. "You just mentioned that I intimidated you." "Is that all?" "Mostly." "Fuck," I muttered. Jasper chuckled. "I was just wondering why that might be." "Did drunk Bella not tell you?" "Well, she did, but I'd prefer to hear it from you." "I'm sure she explained it just fine," I insisted. "So your drunk answer that you don't even remember giving is the final answer you want to stick with?" he asked. "MMHMM." I hummed quietly and took a gulp of my drink. The burn hit me hard, and I coughed after I swallowed. "It's got a bit of an edge," Jasper said with a smirk. I glared at him and leaned over to set my glass down on the coffee table. I got comfortable again and sighed. "Fine. What reason did I give you?" "Long version or the overall gist?" "Shit." I let out an uncontrollable, nervous giggle. "This gist, I guess." He gave me an amused grin, and I could see that he was holding back a laugh. "You told me I deserved my own Hallmark movie." "Son of a bitch." I whined and hid my face in my hands. "I honestly found it to be quite wholesome and adorable," he continued. "Not helping, cowboy." I muttered into my hands. I felt the sofa shift and then his hands pulled lightly on my wrists as he tried to make me drop my hands. I let my arms drop and looked up to see him on a knee in front of me. His bluish eyes met mine almost instantly, and I let myself get lost in them for a moment for no other reason than to forget about what we were talking about. "This isn't the conversation I was talking about earlier this morning," I joked half-heartedly. He smiled a small, crooked smile. "Which one were you talking about then, babe?" "The same one I've been avoiding for 2 years now." "You're still avoiding it." "I know," I admitted. I'm not great with the whole talking about feelings thing. Honestly, I kinda hate it." He chuckled. "That's a promising way to start this off." "I know, I'm sorry," I said pitifully, reaching up to rest my hand on his cheek. "How about we skip all the torture and go straight to the end then? Does it feel real to you now?" he asked. I bit my lip, staring into his eyes again. "It's a yes or no question, darlin'. Doesn't get much easier than that." I nodded. "A verbal confirmation would be nice," he hinted. I smiled softly before leaning down and kissing him. It took him a second to respond, but when he did, it was the same overwhelming feeling as this morning. The feeling that he wasn't close enough or that I'd never in my life get enough of him. I was breathless when I finally pulled away from him, and I rested my forehead against his. "Ya see, you skipped to the kiss and make up part, and we just weren't quite there yet, babe," Jasper chided playfully. I giggled and kissed him again, chastely this time. "Yes, it feels real this time, I want it to be real this time," I said softly. He smiled and stood up, pulling me to my feet with him. He dipped his head down and kissed my lips. I reached up and tangled my hands in his hair, pulling him closer to me. He broke away from me abruptly with the same look he had given me that night at the hospital. My heart dropped. "What?" He looked conflicted for a moment before he responded earnestly. "I'm in love with you, Isabella." I felt my whole body relax, and I leaned back into his arms. I moved my hands from his hair to rest on his chest. "For how long?" I murmured. He shook his head. "Fuck if I know, baby doll," he admitted in a low drawl, his lighthearted and cocky smile showing through in his voice. "A while." I giggled. "Same here," I replied and stood up on my toes to kiss him for a moment. "I love you, too," I said softly, our lips still nearly touching. He closed the distance between our lips again. There was an eagerness and urgency I felt that hadn't been there before, and when his tongue slipped into my mouth, I wrapped my arms around his neck. Jasper's arm moved to lift me up, and I wrapped my legs around him. I pulled away from him slightly when I felt his feet start to move. "Am I right to assume that this is the part where we kiss and make up?" He smirked. "Pretty damn." My phone rang 3 different times in a row from Jasper's nightstand, but his kisses on my neck kept me quite convinced that I shouldn't check it. After the 3rd round of rings stopped and the 4th one started, he growled and grabbed the phone and shoved it at my ear. "Tell them to fuck off," he said as his mouth traveled lower to my bare chest. I giggled and checked the caller ID before answering. "Hey, T, what's up?" I asked. "Hey, where the hell are you? You should have gotten back here like 2 hours ago. We're way behind schedule," she said, annoyed. Jasper's kisses started to trail even lower down my stomach. "Fuck. What? It's Christmas night. We always get drunk on boozy hot chocolate and watch Urban Cowboy in our PJs and shit talk about how awful it is. It's a 5-year tradition, Isabella." Jasper's mouth had found its way down to my inner thigh, and he lightly nipped at my skin with his teeth. I had to fight to think clearly. "Right. Fuck. Can we make that like a New Year's thing? Just for this year?" I asked and hiked my leg up to shove Jasper's shoulder with my foot. That was definitely the wrong move. He smirked and caught my calf before hitching my leg over his shoulder, giving him a better angle to torture me. "But it's such good torture, babe. Whose fucking side are you on, whore?" I forgot I was on the phone with Tanya until I heard her yelling my name. At that point, Jasper could hear her as well, and he released my leg to move back up my body. He sat up on his elbow and held his hand out to me for the phone. I handed it to him, and he lifted it up to his ear. "Bella's indisposed." He listened on the phone for a moment, his eyes trailing up and down my body. It should have made me uncomfortable, but it only made me even more eager to go for round 2. I turned on my side and traced my fingers down in his chest. He smirked down at me, but then his face fell abruptly. "I'm sorry, what was that, Tanya? She said she'd do it on New Year's. Why does it have to be today? I really think you're overthinking this." He listened for a bit longer, rolled his eyes, and sighed heavily. "See you in a few minutes, then," he said and ended the call. "So I take it that they're coming here?" I asked. "So fucking stubborn." He muttered and tossed my phone back on the nightstand before taking my hand from his chest and pinning it above my head on the bed. He hovered over me, grinning mischievously. "What do you think you're doing? Your sisters are on their way," I giggled. "It'll be at least a half an hour before they get here." The doorbell rang, Dally started barking, and I heard both Rosalie and Tanya's voices yelling, "We're home," as they walked inside. I laughed. "You were saying?" Jasper groaned. "Were they already on their fucking way?" "They were probably in the driveway." He huffed and begrudgingly rolled out of bed. He walked into the bathroom and shut the door just as someone knocked on his bedroom door. I pulled the sheets over my chest and sat up in bed. "Come in." Rosalie peeked her head around the door, partially covering her eyes. When she saw that it was only me, she dropped her hand. "Bitches ain't loyal, let me tell ya," she snapped as she walked into the bedroom. I rolled my eyes. "I'm sorry I forgot. But hey, this isn't the first time someone's forgotten about it, remember?" Tanya forgot like 2 years ago. I know. I need better fucking friends, she said. Jasper walked out of his bathroom wearing a pair of dark gray joggers and tossed me a hoodie. Was this really necessary? He asked Rosalie. Quite. Learn your place, Jasper. She was ours first, Rosalie said sternly, crossing her arms over her chest. He rolled his eyes, and Tanya walked into the bedroom. Movie and drinks are ready when we are, she said, and then looked at me. HMPH. I pursed my lips, smiling. Could I get a minute? I asked, holding up the hoodie Jasper had just thrown at me. Tanya narrowed her eyes at me and then turned to Jasper. You've corrupted our Bella, and I don't appreciate it. Jasper looked at Tanya questioningly. I'm sorry, I forget the part where she wasn't a willing partner in this. Look, not to take sides or anything, I interjected, but you do tend to get me involved in a lot of sticky situations. Not that this is one of those times, I told Jasper. It surely damn is one of those times, Tanya said as Jasper looked at me in disbelief. And just to play devil's advocate for both sides, I am a willing partner like 99% of the time, I said. Tanya glared at me. Would you stop stirring the pot and get dressed? Rosalie asked. I smiled. Could I get a minute maybe? I repeated. Tanya and Rosalie both rolled their eyes and left the room. I pulled the hoodie on and then slid out of bed. Whose side are you on, woman? Jasper asked as I pulled my underwear back on. I laughed and walked over to him. You'll never know, and that is the beauty of stirring the pot. He wrapped his arms around my waist. Is that so? I nodded and pulled him down to kiss me. I better go before they get too mad. Yeah, you should. He chuckled. I'm assuming they're staying in the guest room tonight. I'll move your bag over here while the movie's on so they don't catch on to anything. And then I'm going outside on the porch and not watching John Travolta train for a fucking mechanical bull rodeo. I swear to God, he muttered, shaking his head and pulling me towards the bedroom door. That movie makes you irrationally angry, doesn't it? Is it really irrational? He asked as he walked with me towards the living room. Let me ask you something, Isabella. If I cheated on you, would you get back together with me just because I lasted 8 seconds on a mechanical bull? I laughed, shaking my head. No, I wouldn't, and that, my darling, is why that movie is complete and utter shit. Tanya chimed in. If you're gonna shit talk, you gotta watch. That's the rules. Jasper rolled his eyes. If I'm not back inside by the time it's over, come get me, he said before he kissed my temple and walked over to the buffet to get a drink before he went outside. I sat down on the sofa next to Tanya and picked up the mug of hot chocolate she had waiting for me on the coffee table. We started the movie, and by 10 minutes in, we stopped paying attention and started gossiping. Rosalie and I filled Tanya in on the bridesmaid dress situation, to which she could only make the same horrified face as her mother and sister. When the movie finished, we were all pretty tipsy, and the three of us got up, put our mugs in the sink, and then walked down the hall towards the bedrooms. Tanya gave me a tight hug before she went into the room behind Rosalie. It's good to have you back, Bells, she said softly. Thanks, T. She pulled back from me, patted my head, gave me a bright smile, and then went into the guest room. I walked over to Jasper's room and went inside. He was sitting in the armchair in the corner of his room and reading, so I made my way over to him and wordlessly climbed over his book into his lap. He chuckled and moved his arms so that I could get comfortable. I straddled his lap and wrapped my arms around his neck, nuzzling my face into his shoulder. Ya good? He asked, a smile in his voice. MMHMM. I heard his book hit the floor with a thud, and one of his arms circled around my waist as his other hand rubbed up and down my back. I pulled back from him and ran my finger down his nose, studying his face as I did. See something you like? Jasper asked. I hummed, smiling and nodding. He chuckled and pulled me in to give me a deep kiss. I want to raise your babies, Jasper Whitlock, I said dreamily after he broke away from me. I might get you drunk more often. You're awfully forthcoming with information. He pointed out. Who's your favorite? Me, Rosalie, or Tanya? I giggled and sat up to look at him. I don't have favorites. Okay, but really, I do not have a favorite, I repeated. So you're saying if either one of my sisters came in right now and professed their love to you, there's a chance you'd leave me? I thought for a moment. I feel like this is a trap. Jasper laughed loudly. In what way? Well, if I say no, then you'll assume that you're my favorite. But if I say yes, then you'll say one of them is my favorite. So really, the only right answer is to not date any of you. Or all of you. And that's just a lot. I'd need to get a whole nother calendar just to keep up. He broke into another fit of laughter. I think it's time I put you to bed. I shook my head. I'm not sleepy, I said and ran a hand through the ringlets in his blonde hair. Be honest. Do you do the curly girl method? His lips twitched. A half-assed attempt at it. I knew it. I laughed. You seem like the comb in your pocket cocky type. Do I? MMHMM. And what other types are there? He asked, smiling a little. There's dude bro, walk crotch first cocky, there's.
Wait, I'm sorry, what was that? Think of any dumb, mediocre jock you went to high school with. How did he walk? Shoulders back, crotch first, right, chin up, looking down their nose at everyone. It's the most obnoxious level of self-confidence I've ever seen because it is completely unwarranted. 100%.
Jasper chuckled. Is mine warranted then? I'd say the good hair guys have a pretty good reason to be cocky, yeah. Good to know. MMHMM. Who's really your favorite? Jasper teased. I laughed and leaned in to kiss him. His arms wound tighter around me as it deepened, and when I pulled away from him, his eyes gleamed somewhere between seductive and playful. As if you don't already know. I murmured before letting my lips crash into his again. Sunshine. When I woke up the day after Christmas, I was alone in bed, and I could hear the sound of blaring Red Dirt Country drifting into the bedroom from the kitchen as well as Tanya and Jasper bickering. I laughed to myself and stretched before getting out of bed, pulling on Jasper's hoodie, and going into the bathroom to freshen up. I quickly brushed my teeth, braided my hair, washed my face, and put on my glasses before wandering out of the room and to the kitchen. Jasper was sitting at the kitchen island while Tanya and Rosalie made breakfast. Rosalie saw me first. Good morning, sunshine, she greeted. I smiled in response as I walked to stand next to Jasper. He pulled me close to his side and kissed my cheek. I tried to get them to turn the music down, he said. I laughed. It's okay. It didn't wake me up. See, I told you it wouldn't bother her. She's used to it. This is a typical Saturday morning at our house, Tanya said. Jasper rolled his eyes and finished his coffee. I reached for his mug. Do you want another cup? I asked softly. Yeah, babe, thanks. I took his mug and went over to the coffee pot to get him a fresh cup and to make a cup for myself as well. So, Bella, Rosalie told me last night that you'll have to do a brunch with Victoria and the rest of her bridesmaids? Tanya asked. Don't remind me. She's gonna be calling me to set that up any day now from the sounds of it, I muttered. How many bridesmaids does she have? I halted what I was doing and turned to stare directly at Tanya. 12.
12. How does she have that many friends? I shook my head and went back to making my coffee. Well, one is me, and 3 of them are her sisters, so that's 4 right there. Don't ask me about the other 8, though. I met a handful of them at the engagement party, but I guess I'll find out about the rest of them at brunch. She has 3 sisters but picked you as maid of honor? Rosalie asked. Not that you aren't an amazing human being, but doesn't that seem a little odd? I finished making my coffee and turned around. Ya no, R.O., you're not wrong. That is off. I mused and handed Jasper his cup over the island. That girl is off. Tanya mumbled. Speaking of off, I looked at Jasper. You need to let my brother know when you'd be available to help with picking vendors. They want our input. Jasper made a face. You know I'm in and out of town. I raised an eyebrow. You can make it work, cowboy, I snapped. Tanya and Rosalie both laughed to themselves as Jasper smirked. I'll see what I can move around. You do that. I replied sassily. Breakfast was finished not long after, and we all sat at the dining room table to eat. When we finished, Rosalie and Tanya went back to the townhouse, and I helped Jasper clean up the kitchen. Afterwards, we went out onto the porch and sat down on the swing hanging from the rafters, each of us with a fresh mug of coffee in our hands. I picked my feet up under me and leaned my head on his shoulder, looking out at the pastures behind the house. It was peaceful out here. Jasper's house wasn't quite in the middle of nowhere, but it felt like a little corner of heaven in an area that was quickly developing. There was enough land surrounding and it was set back enough from the road to make you forget about everything else for a little while. It's so peaceful out here. I commented softly. I like to think so, he replied.
It's a good place to come home to when I've been gone for a while. A whole lot better than that damn studio, he chuckled softly. Why do you travel so much? I asked, looking up at him. I mean, I know some of it's for work, but it seems like a lot of it isn't. He shrugged. Never had anything to keep me tied down, I guess, he said, his face thoughtful and his tone playful. I just always figured I should while I still could, especially the rodeoing. I don't think it'll be long until I've gotta hang that one up anyway. You mean you're actually gonna slow down one of these days? I teased. He rolled his eyes. Well, I didn't say I wasn't gonna stay busy, he replied. I laughed. What about you, huh? He asked. What about me? Did you not tell me less than 72 hours ago that you hate your job? I sighed. I don't hate my job. I'm just in a rut. I don't know. He chuckled. You're 3 years into it and already in a rut? Shut up. Don't remind me. I giggled and took a sip of my coffee. Rosalie offered you a job. We're still looking, ya know? Yeah, I know. I replied, thinking back to 6 months ago when Rosalie had asked me if I'd consider being an events coordinator for the distillery. At the time, I couldn't imagine doing anything but teaching, and part of me still couldn't. At the end of the day, I did love my job and the kids I worked with, but I also felt like living in the same old same every day was starting to slowly drive me crazy. So knowing that the job was still open was enough to make me start to consider the job switch just a little more than I was before. So, you don't think a change of pace would be good? He asked, seeming to read my mind. Maybe. I conceded. But if I recall correctly, you also just told me less than 72 hours ago that I shouldn't just up and quit my day job. He shrugged. I can change my mind. I sat up and gave him a look. He sighed. I just think it might be nice for you to be able to take off when you want to take off and not have to worry about it too much. I tilted my head at him. I don't think your sisters would appreciate you continually stealing me away from doing my job. He smirked. Just think about it, he said and lifted his hand to caress my cheek for a moment. I nodded and then turned to look back out at the pasture before taking another sip from my coffee. I let my mind wander a little. I thought about how long I had let my fear of getting involved with Jasper cloud my judgment and how much time I had wasted by hiding from him and pushing him away. I wondered where we'd be right now if we had never acted like that night at the hospital never happened. The past day and a half had flown by so fast that I hadn't truly had the time to stop and think about it all. It was just so easy to get swept up in the moment with him. I'd always considered Rosalie and Tanya to be hurricanes in their own right, but it was clearly just a family trait. I looked down at the turquoise ring he had given me and spun it around with my thumb a few times. What are you thinking about? Jasper's deep drawl broke me from my reverie. I bit my lip, considering what I actually wanted to tell him. Honestly, that maybe I should have let this happen a little sooner. I responded meekly, resting my head back on his shoulder. He scoffed. Well, I don't want to say I told you so, but, he trailed off. I rolled my eyes. Don't ruin the moment, cowboy. It's only the first time in 2 years that I don't want to punch you in the face. He only laughed softly and kissed my head. The rest of the day and days to follow seemed to all run together, as the days between Christmas and New Year's typically do. Before I knew it, it was New Year's Eve, and I was in Jasper's bathroom getting ready for his family's annual party. The New Year's Eve party that the Whitlocks threw every year was always at the event space at the distillery, and every year, it was a fight between Whitlock and Swan siblings along with our significant others about who would be the DD. Typically, we drew names out of a hat, and the unlucky winner got it for that year. However, Edward put a stop to that last year when he realized his and Victoria's names had been the only ones going in the hat for the 2 years prior. So last year we had to come up with more creative and fair ways to decide. Now, it was a rock, paper, scissors bracket. The loser of the top 2 was the unlucky winner. Everyone would meet at Jasper's place today before the party to decide who this year's driver was. I was still getting ready in Jasper's bedroom when I heard Emmett's booming voice in the foyer. I cursed to myself and checked the time, realizing I was more behind schedule than I had originally thought. I hurried through the rest of my makeup and then got dressed in black tights, a short black sequin skirt, and a cozy maroon sweater. I pulled my hair into 2 quick, low messy buns and went to see everyone else that had already showed up to the house. Edward and Emmett were in the kitchen with Jasper when I came out. They each gave me a hug, and I asked them where Rosalie and Tanya were. Oh, they weren't ready to leave when we left the house. They'll be here soon, Edward replied. Emmett smirked. His sister's in town. You know Queen Bee is on her own time schedule. Edward elbowed him. I glared at Edward. I'm sorry, okay. She surprised us with a visit for Christmas. What did you expect? My whole family comes to this thing. She couldn't not come, Bella. I only laughed humorlessly. I'm not Ding, I announced and walked towards the buffet table.
Hey, no, that's cheating, Emmett objected as I pulled the bottle of Jack Daniels off of the tabletop.
I'll put my name in twice next year, I snapped and opened the bottle. Babe Jasper started, but I held my hand up to him. Don't, babe, me. How are you so okay with this? She tried to run you over with your own truck. Or have you forgotten about the time you put your dick in crazy? Jasper cringed and narrowed his eyes at me. Water under the bridge, he grit out. I shook my head. I warned you. Just like I warned Garrett about Victoria. I told you. That bitch is crazy. But no, don't listen to me. You just thought I was being jealous. I didn't know what I was talking about, did I, Jasper? I ranted. He smirked. You were pretty jealous, but was I wrong about her? Edward sighed. She'll be on her best behavior. Huh, I said and took a sip of whiskey straight from the bottle. That girl is the reason I no longer have Sable. Your sister is a cat murderer, Edward. She didn't kill your cat, Bella. It just got out, he said softly. Because she left the patio door open after I repeatedly told her not to. She was being vindictive. Emmett laughed. You have extremely specific and random instances of beef with a lot of different chicks, Bella. Maybe you're the crazy one. Perhaps I am. Or perhaps, it's that the men in my life are dumbasses that don't understand the implications of the hot to crazy matrix and continually decide to bring bad energy into my life. Emmett narrowed his eyes at me. Don't womansplain the hot to crazy matrix to me, honey. I'm dating Rosalie, all right? I'm fully aware of the consequences and implications. I'm not talking to you, I said, glaring at Edward and Jasper. She's my sister, Bella. Edward argued. But you set her up with Jasper, and he then brought her into my home. Which is now catless. I hope you're happy with yourself, boys. Technically, she lost your cat after she went on a shopping trip with Tanya, so it's more Tanya's fault than mine, Jasper said. I huffed. Do I need to take you to the shelter to get you a new cat? Would that make you feel better? Edward asked sincerely. I glared at him and then rolled my eyes. You're too nice to be mad at. It's pissing me off. I muttered and took another swig of whiskey. The front door opened, and I sighed, took one last drink from the bottle, and then closed it back and put it back on the buffet table. It was Garrett and Victoria, and the conversation changed to something different between the guys as Victoria came to stand next to me. Where's the twins? Victoria asked, sounding bored as she looked around the room. I sighed and then giggled to myself a little. There was only one thing in the world that Victoria and I agreed on these days, and that was our dislike for Edward's older sister, Irina. They're running a little late. Irina's in town. Victoria's head snapped towards me. What? She sneered. You heard me right. I affirmed. She rolled her eyes. After a day of barely eating, those 3 gulps of whiskey were starting to get a little on top of me, so I decided quite quickly to be bold. A plan was already forming in my head, and I could easily kill 2 birds with 1 stone tonight. I just had to present it the right way to my accomplice. Hey, why'd you pick me to be your maid of honor? I asked Victoria quietly. She looked at me in shock before shrugging and avoiding my eyes. My sisters and I aren't close. You're close to your brother and used to be close to me. Just made sense, I thought. Maybe this could bring us closer to being friends again. Why aren't we friends anymore? Victoria looked guilty for a moment. I suppose my past actions may have something to do with it. I tilted my head at her. And what's with the change of heart in the past 6 months? She looked over at me in shock. Yeah, I know you slept with my boyfriend. What's your deal, Victoria? Why's it always a competition with me? She just shrugged, crossing her arms, and pouting down at the floor. I sighed. Look, it doesn't matter. I'm being sweet to you for my brother, but you already know that. I'm just suggesting that if you really want to be friends with me again, we start by calling a one-night truce and make Irina's night miserable, seeming as she's literally the only thing that we share common feelings about. Victoria looked over at me with a slight smile. Okay, Swan. You have a deal.
I smiled brightly. Hook, line, and sinker. When I turned back to the kitchen, Jasper was watching me, curiosity etched on his features. I only blew him a kiss from across the room. He made his way over to me, quickly excused the both of us from Victoria, and pulled me onto the back porch.
What are you up to, woman? I smiled innocently. Nothing you need to worry your pretty head about, cowboy. His eyes narrowed. I seem to remember this being a team effort. Look, tonight won't be the night you have to hide a body, all right? Victoria and I have an understanding, and that's all you need to know for right now. The back door opened and Victoria stuck her head out. Thing 1 and Thing 2 just showed up with the cat killer. She announced and shut the door back. I made a motion with my hand to the door. Even Victoria thinks she killed my cat, Jas. I whined. He sighed. That cat was a dipshit anyway. Yeah, but he was my dipshit. I pouted. Jasper chuckled. Come on. We have to get to the party. Here's the fanfic ends.